What would you do if you knew the road ahead would bring pain, but you felt called to walk it anyway? Have you ever faced a decision where every warning told you to stop, but something deeper told you to keep going? And how do you know the difference between fear trying to protect you and purpose calling you forward? Paul stood at that exact crossroads. After his emotional farewell to the Ephesian elders, he didn't turn back. He didn't slow down. Instead, he continued his journey step by step toward Jerusalem. But this wasn't just another destination. This was a place filled with uncertainty, a place where danger waited, and somehow he already knew it. The journey began by sea. Paul and his companions set sail, moving from one place to another, Kos, Rhodes, Patara, each stop marking progress but also bringing him closer to what he sensed ahead. Eventually, they found a ship crossing to Phoenicia and boarded it. The journey continued, steady and deliberate. At one point, they passed by Cyprus, leaving it on the left, and sailed towards Syria, landing at Tyre. There, something important happened. They found disciples, not strangers, not just people passing through, but believers, a community connected by faith, even in a different place. And Paul stayed with them for 7 days, 7 days of rest, of fellowship, of connection. But during that time, a message began to surface. Through the Spirit, the disciples urged Paul not to go to Jerusalem. Think about that. These were not people trying to mislead him. They cared about him. They sensed danger. And out of that care, they spoke, "Don't go." It wasn't a casual suggestion. It was a warning. And yet, Paul continued. Now this raises a question that many people wrestle with. If the Spirit revealed danger, why would Paul still go? Was he ignoring the warning? Was he being reckless? Or was there something deeper at play? Because sometimes warnings are not meant to stop you. Sometimes they are meant to prepare you. Paul didn't deny the danger. He didn't pretend everything would be fine. He understood the cost, but he also understood his calling. And for him, calling outweighed comfort. So when the time came, they all went together to the shore, men, women, and children. They knelt, they prayed, and they said goodbye. It's a quiet moment, but powerful. Because even when people don't fully agree with your path, they can still stand with you in love. They didn't try to force Paul to stay. They didn't walk away in frustration. They prayed for him. And sometimes that's what support looks like. Not control, not agreement, but presence. From Tyre, Paul continued to Ptolemais, where he greeted the believers and stayed for a day, then on to Caesarea. And here the tension grew even stronger. He stayed at the house of Philip the Evangelist, one of the 7, a man known for his faith, a man whose household itself reflected devotion, as his daughters were known for speaking under the Spirit's guidance. This was not a random stop. This was a place filled with spiritual awareness. And while Paul was there, another man arrived, a prophet named Agabus. He had a history of delivering serious messages, and what he did next was not subtle. He took Paul's belt. He tied his own hands and feet with it, and then he said, "The owner of this belt will be bound like this by the people in Jerusalem and handed over." This wasn't just words, it was a visual, a clear, undeniable picture of what was coming. Bound, captured, delivered into danger. At this point, the response from everyone around Paul became intense. They pleaded with him, begged him, "Don't go." This wasn't just concern anymore. This was urgency, emotion, fear. Because now, the future wasn't vague. It was visible. And still, Paul did not change his mind. Why? Because his decision wasn't based on avoiding pain. It was based on obedience. He responded in a way that reveals his heart. "Why are you weeping and breaking my heart? I am ready not only to be bound, but also to die for the name of the Lord Jesus." Those are not easy words. They're not comfortable. They're not safe, but they are clear. Paul had already settled something inside himself. He had already decided what mattered most. And because of that, the fear of what might happen did not control him. The people realized they could not persuade him. And so they said, "The Lord's will be done." That moment carries a quiet surrender, not agreement with the situation, but trust in something greater. And Paul continued, step by step, toward Jerusalem, toward uncertainty, toward what he knew would not be easy. This story challenges something deep within us. Because we live in a world that constantly tells us to avoid discomfort, to choose safety, to protect ourselves. And while wisdom matters, while caution has its place, there are moments when purpose calls us beyond comfort. Moments when doing the right thing doesn't feel safe. Moments when following truth comes with a cost. And in those moments, we face a choice. Do we step back, or do we move forward? Paul's journey reminds us that faith is not just about believing when things are easy. It's about trusting when things are hard. It's about moving forward even when the outcome is uncertain. Not blindly, not recklessly, but with conviction. Because there is a difference between ignoring danger and accepting it for the sake of something greater. Paul didn't deny the warnings, he embraced them, he understood them, but he didn't let them stop him. And maybe that's something we need to hear today. Because sometimes the very thing you're being called to do will come with resistance, with doubt, with voices telling you to stop. Not always because those voices are wrong, but because they see the risk. And risk can be real, but so is purpose. So how do you know when to move forward? You look deeper, beyond fear, beyond comfort. You ask yourself, what am I being called to do? What matters most? And am I willing to follow through, even if it costs me something? Because purpose without cost is often shallow, but purpose that requires sacrifice shapes who you become. Paul's journey was not about proving something. It wasn't about being fearless. It was about being faithful. And there is a difference. Fearless people don't feel fear. Faithful people feel it and move forward anyway. That's what makes this story powerful. Not the destination, but the decision. The decision to go. The decision to trust. The decision to stay committed, no matter what. And as we reflect on this, we're left with a question. Where in your life are you being called forward, but held back by fear? Is there something you've been avoiding because it feels uncertain, because it feels risky, because it might be uncomfortable? And what would happen if you chose to move forward anyway? Not recklessly, not without thought, but with clarity, with purpose, with faith. Because the path ahead may not always be easy, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. Sometimes the hardest paths lead to the most meaningful places. Paul didn't turn back. He didn't hesitate. He continued. And his journey would go on to impact countless lives. Not because it was safe, but because it was faithful. Thank you for watching this video. If this message spoke to you, don't forget to like, follow the channel, and share this video with someone who needs encouragement to keep moving forward today.